Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SPINcast. Today, I'm joined with me by John Price, the director of esports there at Ohio State University, the Ohio State University, I should say. So, John, welcome. Thanks for coming back on SPINcast. I know you've been a reoccurring guest at this point, really to talk about all the new stuff going on, especially at Ohio State, and how some of those things might be a little different than some of the smaller schools that are more prominent in the esports space right now, to say the least. So without further ado, John, go ahead, introduce yourself once again to everybody, kind of tell us, hey, what's your day-to-day like, at Ohio State? What are you trying to build, and what are some of your larger goals as you look to create this esports program?
Hey, thanks, Kyle. It's always great to be on the Spin podcast and get a chance to talk about collegiate esports because, as you said, it's an exciting space that's constantly growing. And I think me being here at the Ohio State University, and I appreciate remember that's an important part and something not native to Ohio. I'm slowly trying to acclimate to my own language use. So I appreciate it. But just for a quick background, before I was here at the Ohio State University, I was at Henderson State University. We were the first college in the state of Arkansas to have a esports program with scholarships, with a budget, with an actual space to play in that state. And it was a great opportunity to build that program. But I kind of like you mentioned there, going to a D1 school, especially a school with the renown and reputation that is Ohio State, it's different. It lends problems and issues that, especially when I was at a smaller institution and such, that you just don't imagine ever happening. And so that's one of the big things that I know is happening all across the country. There are a few other D1 institutions out there that have recently, actually about the same time frame, hired on directors. Sergio Black over at the University of Maryland comes to mind, as well as Michigan State just hired Chris Blinsky. I always say his last name wrong, though. Both hired directors at the same time that I was brought on here at Ohio State. So there's a lot of interesting new things happening right now on the collegiate level, especially at the highest level of competition. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. That's the best way to put it, right? I'm so excited to watch collegiate esports continue to grow. It's boomed in the last few years. From, I'd say, when we first started Spin back in 2019, it was big, sizable, but wasn't football, baseball, basketball. But now these days, it's like lots and lots of schools are picking up so much. Where you see universities with the size and scale of the Ohio State University picking it up and looking to build a program to match what they do and all the other competitions they participate in. So that's super awesome. So kind of walk me through, as you looked for the first, year or two, the short term, what are some of the achievements that you want to accomplish at Ohio State?
In the short term, for my program, it's a big part of it because campus is so large and how things are. It's actually campus awareness. That's one of the things that we don't always think about in the esports realm, so to speak, but especially at a larger institution. That's one of our big goals here is because we have this amazing facility. If you have a chance to see our website, it's about 80 plus computers in the space that students can come and use for free and such here. And so before, when I was focusing a lot more on competition, still having a community element, now my time is very much divided between not only making sure we foster and continue our competitive side of things, but really also extending that further into the rest of the community. It becomes kind of a key priority that I think a lot of institutions that when they first started it, they weren't thinking about esports as necessarily as this communal gathering place. It was more of a competitive only space. But that's one big priority that I've seen, at least not only from administration on my side of things, but also something I think students at larger institutions are going to want. It's a space that's able to be used by a lot of people. And so campus awareness is one of my first things. And the second thing I'm really working on is providing resources to the different students here on campus that have already been doing great things. That's something I think a lot of D1s are trying to figure out how best to do. And I know it's a conversation that's been happening at a couple other places I've already mentioned so far, because a lot of times they already have esports programs to a degree. They're student run, right? They might have a couple of clubs that have been doing really well so far, but they just don't know how to integrate that, right? Because there is such a different disconnect between how things are done on the esports and also how quickly things happen. That's one of the things that when you get to larger institutions, they do have more resources, but it takes a bit longer to get those resources moving forward. And so those are some of the things that I'm currently trying to balance, of where getting those resources to the students as quickly as possible, but also is kind of laying the groundwork for where we go next, because that's something that administrators are always thinking for. It's not this year, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 decades out sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do. And so I'm trying to kind of balance that aspect of the long-term planning. And right now in the short term, we're just focusing on building our community, getting resources to our students, and of course, competing at the highest level possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that approach of like, hey, let's build that foundational level and maybe the next layer up, because I see it all over the place, right? You hit it on the head there of sometimes the bigger you get, the slower you move, right? It's not a bad thing, but it just takes a little more effort to get kind of everyone on the same ship and get that much bigger ship moving out of the bay per se,
Yeah.
right? We've all seen those cruise ships do like the 30,000 point turns to get out of, as a terrible analogy, but I totally get it. So that's super awesome. So my next question, really focusing kind of on the recruiting side, kind of getting the players involved. Talk to me about kind of your approach, because I know that it's probably not per se exactly what you did at Henderson State, where it was more, I'd say, probably traditional recruiting. But talk me through kind of your recruiting process, what you look for in students, and is that more on-campus driven towards that to your esports program from students already there? Is it brings students in from outside, etc.?
Yeah, no, great question, because it is very different than what I used to do. I used to go to a lot more high schools. I used to go to a lot of other events, just looking at players and such. And well, I still do that. We're much more campus focused. It's one of those. I think it's a benefit in the sense of that we're able to kind of rely on it. Where when I came here, we already had teams that were like, take League of Legends example. We already had teams that were full of grandmasters, masters, as well as challenger rank there. So it's kind of like, is it necessarily really need to go out and find new people and recruit them to come here for the next fall or semester, or more of you need to find the ones that are already on campus? And that's really the big change that I've noticed is more of that aspect of, that's also kind of how that campus awareness aspect kind of builds into it. It's more of, we have the people here. It's a matter of getting a hold of them and figuring out what it is. Hey, can we get them into the team? So that's one way recruitment has changed. But one of the other aspects of here is I'm always thinking forward. And so that's going to come back to the D1 area. It's going to be part of that eventually. And there's going to, and I've already, heard bits of rumblings of that, because one of the things that what players want, especially at the collegiate level, is also changing. It's not always now about scholarships. It's also about what is it they're majoring? What are they going to get a degree they're really happy with at when they're done and such? And so that's one area I think that Ohio State's particularly unique, is because of our massive repertoire of well-established academic programs and such, that we can appeal to someone, even if we currently do not offer scholarships. That's on the long-term list of fixing. So, and we're are on our way towards that. But it's one of those things of where I think that's part of that. That's the nature of change. We're going to have that point where we're going to be much more traditional in that sense of what a lot of these words, like what I was doing at Henderson and recruiting to the high school level. But for right now, we're kind of enjoying that fact that we already have a few of those things established. We have these teams, but I'm always thinking forward, because we're going to need to really establish it, because the pipeline is being built around us every day for what is coming for future recruitment at the collegiate level. And it's all about kind of getting ahead of that. And that's one of the things I'm hoping to bring here to Ohio State, is where we have more of that, even in whether that be combines or what have you in the future. I think that's all in the cards potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that vision, right? Because it's you have that benefit today of like you're a really large student base at Ohio State. It's a really big school, so you can kind of get those people involved in esports. But what does Ohio State football, basketball, baseball built on? It's built on recruiting, right? And you having that mindset for the future, that's what's going to be key. You ask a lot of people all the time, and I hear it changing a lot, which I think one of the sadly negative things about esports is it's very monetary driven sometimes. Like, hey, how much scholarship am I going to get? What's the prize pool split I'm going to get? I'm like, why aren't we asking about the majors that I could participate in? How's their academic programs? How's campus life? Stuff like that. So it's great to see that you already have that mindset, because that'll make recruiting last for decades, right, rather than the next year or two, and really establish everything for years and years and years to come. So that's super awesome. So when we talk about recruiting, whether it's for a student kind of on campus that you're trying to get into the esports program and compete, or in the future some students that might be coming to Ohio State to specifically play esports, what are those qualities you look for in students in that recruiting process? What's that inside the game versus outside the game balance that you have, and what are some of those some of those qualities that you look for in that recruiting process for the individuals themselves?
Great. Great question, Kyle. I think the biggest one is I need to see proactive students. I need to see proactive players. And what I mean by that is it's not just your rank, it's not just the amount of tournaments you've done, but it's like, what have you done outside of those kind of traditional avenues? Because I find that's an indicator of someone that's going to stay in that activity, stay in that title for years instead of potentially burning out, right? Like when you take the extra step that you help build the program you were at and helped coach other players at that program while you're going through it. That's a key part, I think, that makes the difference between a great player and a good player is that extra effort and foresight. And this is something I think about a lot because it's that sustainability aspect. Passion takes you so far. And it's something I think everyone in esports has a passion for it in gaming in general, but it's what you do with that passion that becomes really indicative of where you're going to end up. And whether or not a player I might recruit in as a junior in high school is going to be able to still, be able to compete at the highest level when they inevitably get to me in college, right? And then stay with us for years, ideally. And sometimes things happen and difference and change, but I find that's probably one of the biggest ones. The other one, of course, is communication. I always want to listen to VODs. I'm always, most of the time when we're doing it, it's less about look at the gameplay. It's more about just sit in Discord and listen to them talking about what's happening. And if I can piece together what's actually occurring in the game through just the way they're talking to one another, that's a great indicator that they're going to gel well with the team, but more importantly, that they've understand the role communication plays it. Because sometimes players will think about it, it's like, okay, I just need to call out what's going on in my lane and that's it. And for League of Legends, I pull that because it's one of I'm more familiar with other ones, but same thing in Rocket League or what have you. You can tell when you're just listening that they understand why they're talking, why they're communicating what they're communicating, and how to also then support their teammates when distressing things sometimes happen. So those are probably the two biggest things I'm looking for in a player overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to hear both of those. I think that's two very important points that I think any player out there that might be listening to this, that's two of the things that you should immediately work on, right? Those are two immense qualities that are really important because, when you go to college, right, you're going for 4 years, right? And that's your first point of like, what are those qualities that make that longevity a little bit longer, right? Where hey, you are a great player right now. You're a Radiant in Valorant, as an example, your junior year, but are you still going to be at that level? And things like work ethic, the other qualities you mentioned is what's indicative, right? Natural skill can only take you so far. I always look at Cristiano Ronaldo as a great example, right? We see him in the World Cup, especially now with the World Cup going on. He's 38. It's his work ethic that leaves him at the top of the game, and that's what's defined his success is the ability to practice continuously and always be committed and not get lost in some of the other side noise that we know very much exists in esports, which it seems to be getting less and less, which is good, but it definitely exists. One question I get a lot from students about, especially the bigger universities, is kind of what's the day-to-day of a college student? Can you walk us through what one of your students, one of your players, kind of they can expect, or what their day looks like for the students when they come as freshmen to expect what that college life is about as an esports player?
Yeah. Oh, well, the day-to-day is it's pretty reasonable, I think, for some of our competing teams. We try to have between 3 to 4 practices or scrimmages a week before a match, depending on our situation and such. And we usually will play in one league at a time. I've had times where we've done 2, but usually those are very specific and based on the situation. But those almost always are in the evenings. We're talking about between 2 to 4 hours in those sessions. There are some usually that'll happen, but besides that, it's pretty typical. You wake up. Hopefully, you luckily didn't get enrolled in 8 a.m. classes, but otherwise, you deal with that. You might come to the arena and practice if that's what your preference. One of the things that I've been kind of implemented is flexibility. It's one of those things. Everyone has different places and to play, but at least once a week you'll play in the arena, practice as well as usually competitions as well. But besides that, you'll have one-on-one time either with the coach themselves to review VODs, and it kind of goes from there, right? The big thing that happens regardless is you're number one, a student. And so you're always expected. We do have opportunities for tutoring and such. We work with our students to try to provide time and that as a resource, as well as working with our counselors here on campus to help in other ways that might be necessary. I know some of our students actually also go to the gym together. Our League of Legends team, I think at least 4 or 5 of them actually go to the gym consistently together, but that's one of the things they choose to do. I could start a strength and conditioning club with my Rocket League team if I wanted to. But it really gives you a lot of flexibility. And I mean, and that's the big part about college, though, right? It's that chance to discover and be a part of new things. And of course, part of that will be in the esports program and lots of people to meet. But we want to give people flexibility. College is about finding yourself in a lot of ways and experiencing new things. And so we don't really, besides our practices in the evenings and occasional one-on-ones and other study sessions and such, we try to give as much flexibility as possible and the opportunity for you to advance. Now, if you want to sit with a coach for hours on end in practice and you have time to do that and do your classes, we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that because everything's so changing, especially in today's kind of newer world of technology and everything. It's becoming much more what I like to call like an asynchronous society where, some people might like to be a little bit more of a night owl, right? And as long as you have the balance and you're, like you said, working out, having proper nutrition, then it's fine for the most part, right? Obviously, the excessivity of too much of anything is never good. But I love that student first mentality, right? You're going to college because it's college. You're not going to college for scholarship. You're not going to college for prize pool or for glory or fame, right? You're going there to get an education, and it's really awesome that you get the opportunity to also be able to play esports at the collegiate competition level, which is one of the top levels in the country, to say the least. So super awesome. Love to hear all of that. Well, we are edging up on time here, but I have one last question for you, and I asked everybody this, is what are a few pieces of advice for all those students out there right here at Stay Plugged In platform as a recruiting platform? Ton of kids come through and they always ask, hey, what should I be doing to make myself stand out a little bit more, right? So what are some of those things they could work on in your eyes that they should, really consider spending a little more time on as they kind of approach their upper class years, juniors, seniors, and so on?
I think the first one is and this is difficult when you're young and such, it's kind of hard to think of it this way, but a self-inventory of what it is you really want to do. What is it you want to accomplish? Do you feel that you must win a national championship the next few years? That's the drive you have. That's what's charging your passion, whether to go to college or to play the game. Is it something else? Is it friends? Is it just I need to get a specific type of degree? Because the students, when I talk to them, they kind of come with a blank slate and don't really know what they want. Like, one of the first things they'll ask after, initial talking about, like, what do you play, what roles, etc., is always, what do you want to do? What is your next step? Where is it going? Because college is just one point on a much larger journey. And if you have an idea of where it is, it doesn't have to be concrete. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to need to go to this company or what have you, or live in this part of the country. As long as it's clear you put some thought into it, I feel a lot more confident that you're going to be successful at the collegiate level, because that shows planning, that shows dedication, that shows that you have an understanding of where you are right now in the world. That makes me confident that you could, with support and such, that you can move on to the next level and be successful. It takes a little bit more planning than just I have X rank here. And so that's probably the biggest one. And I know that it seems kind of funny that it's literally just that aspect of knowing what you want. But the fact of the matter is, I know even when I was at Henderson State and stuff and looking for players, it's like I needed to know that they could actually fit into what they're doing or that we're part of it. Because the last thing I want to do is have a student come here that doesn't have a plan or anything else, because that's not good for them. Like, hopefully they find it, and that does happen plenty of time. People figure it out. I think I figured out my major when I was a junior or something like that way back when. But for somebody that's potentially trying to recruit you and bring you into a program and make you part of it, they're much more likely to do that if they feel you've also put in some of that thought process of where you're going, because everyone wants to help somebody that has a plan and has a way of getting there that seems reasonable and at least has been thought out a bit. We can fill in the details later, but that's probably the best piece of advice I can give. And that can be extended to all kinds of aspects of you as a player, but also as a student, and more importantly, as a member of a program.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how well said that you put that there. It's putting that thought in goes such a long extra mile, right? There's a big difference in, hey, why do you want to come to Ohio State? And it's like, well, I just want to play at a big university. It's like, okay, well, that's cool. Versus, hey, I want to win or I want to win a national championship at a university of your caliber. And here's the things I'm already doing to set myself up for success, right?
Right.
Definitely, no 17-year-old's going to have all the answers by any means, but if they're there, then it's easy for a coach like you or a director like you to be like, okay, cool. Well, we can definitely come together and help fill in the details because that's what we do, right? So I love to hear that, and that's super important. And the one thing I always add is make sure the parents involved, right? For all the students out there, it's always huge, and I know you agree with me on that. It's always huge for mom or dad to be involved, right? Because they can also help fill in some of those details. And if you're going to college somewhere for 4 years and you're leaving home, mom or dad should probably know about it. I laugh just because I have had so many conversations, I'm sure you had too, where it's like, okay, cool, awesome. You're looking at these three universities and you're kind of already down a good way down the path. What does mom or dad think? Do they have a preference? And they're like, well, I haven't even talked to mom or dad about it. And you're like, oh, okay. We need to stop right here because it's also their money most of the time too when it comes to tuition. So I can see you nodding over there. So it's really important. So that's the only last little add-on I'll have there. But I love that, having a plan doesn't have to be, a step 1 through 100 plan, like you said. Just a simple, hey, these are my big goals, and here's some of the ways that I am working on, or some of the things I'm working on now to achieve that is really separate you from the pack, so to say, versus a lot of other students that may not do that. So sweet, Don. Well, thank you so much. Usually like to keep these around 20 minutes and we're just a touch over. So thank you so much. John, any parting words, any shout outs for anybody watching out there?
Well, first, thanks for checking in, and I hope you come to the Ohio State University and play esports, or at least come visit. It's a really nice facility.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll definitely take a minute. I actually have family. My dad's from Ohio, so I'll be sure I'll be up there sometime next year, and I may have to swing by and see
Oh,
what you're
please do,
doing up
Kyle.
there. So yeah, I'll let you know. But other than that, thanks so much for jumping on SPINcast with me here today. For everyone listening, if you ever have any questions about recruiting or have troubles looking for what college might best fit you, Stay Plugged In is a great place to start. And other than that, have a great night or great evening, great day, whatever time you may watch this recording. Other than that, always stay plugged in.